Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Chatting with the Rev. Today, we're going to be dealing with a local situation concerning our transportation system, SEPTA. Recently, there have been a lot of reports of SEPTA buses and the services that they provide for people with physical, developmental, and mental challenges. For a long time, most bus services were not even equipped to handle people in wheelchairs in particular. And though many of the bigger cities, including Philadelphia, where I reside, now do have accessible buses and rail services and the like, many of the attitudes of those who are driving and those that are passengers, able-bodied passengers on those buses, have not come up to par with the new advancements and new technical advancements that these buses now are equipped with. Many buses can lean, they have ramps that'll lift you up, they have straps, they have a lot of things that will make rides for those who have physical challenges, in particular those who are in wheelchairs, more comfortable and more safe. However, a lot of times the obstacles that we face are not structural, architectural, or technological, but rather it's the attitudes of people. How people feel about when they finally see someone out in public, and in particular those who have to share their services with those who have physical challenges, how they react and how they respond to it. And in many instances, it's a very hostile, very ableistic, discriminatory, biased, prejudiced attitude as it relates to people with physical, developmental, and mental challenges. As one who's in a wheelchair, I know firsthand how people treat us and how they react to us, and in particular as it relates to how they react when they see you get on a bus. I want to talk about a few examples of this in recent time. Some have been on Facebook Live, some have been covered through newspapers and articles. Some I know about because I have personally experienced them, as well as people that I know have experienced bias and not too sensitive attitudes as relates to their going into the public and using public facilities and public transportation. The first case is about a young woman by the name of Jessica Ruiz. We talked about her last week. She attempted to get home, and she attempted to get on the bus number 58 to get home. She lives in the Bustleton area of Philadelphia. And when the bus stopped, she was attempting to get on, and the bus driver asked the people to move and give way to the seats that were prioritized for folk who are physically and developmentally and mentally challenged, as well as senior citizens. No one wanted to move. And so she turned to the young lady and she told her that she would have to wait for the next bus, for no one on this bus wanted to move, and she had no authority to insist that they do so. Her brother-in-law, who was traveling with her, got on the bus and made an appeal to the passengers on the bus to move out of the way, at least on one side, to give his sister-in-law the opportunity to travel on the bus. 3 people got off on one side of the bus, and she got onto the bus. The bus driver then sat back down in her seat without strapping in the young woman in her seat. The brother-in-law took it upon himself again to interject himself, and so he strapped his sister into her seat location, and the bus driver rebuked him, saying that he went beyond his authority and interfered with what she was supposed to do. The young woman responded that, well, we waited for you to do something and you decided to sit back down in your chair, so my brother-in-law took the initiative to fasten me in. The bus driver then decided she was not going to move the bus until a supervisor came on site to review this whole situation. The young lady, Jessica, who was in the wheelchair, she decided to videotape this incident on her cell phone. And I could see her and hear the both of them, the bus driver and Jessica, exchanging words. Jessica was very distraught. She was very frustrated. She was even in tears to one point, very angry and very hurt. And the bus driver was just as upset, just as angry as she was. Jessica then said that her phone was about to cut off. It died, was about to die, and while the supervisor had arrived, at that moment, the phone did shut off. I don't know what followed, but I know that the advocacy group, Disabled in Action, have pledged to follow up on it and to look into this situation and to point her to whatever avenue she could take to make this right. Another example occurred this past January, last month. It took place on bus route number 42, there on Walnut Street. There were a few passengers sitting there. The bus wasn't crowded at all. And there were elderly people, younger people, sitting in this location. When the woman got on the bus, well, just before the woman got on the bus, in fact, and while she was moving toward getting on the bus, the driver went to a young man who was sitting there in a seat that was, once again, designated for those who have disabilities or senior citizens, and asked him to move. He said very quickly and very concisely, "No, I'm not going to move. I'm not moving anywhere." People started to look and started to whisper and started to talk about it. And the bus driver came to the young man again, asking him, "Would you please make room? There's plenty of room here. The bus is virtually empty. A lot of space is open. In fact, there was a space open the next seat behind where this location was." He once again said, "I'm not moving anywhere." What made matters worse, the bus driver had to usher the woman back into the cold. This was January, and it was a cold, wintry January, snowing outside and on the ground. He had to tell her that she had to wait for the next bus and helped her usher her back off into the street again. 2 stops later, the young man gets up. He'd reached his destination, and he got off the bus 2 stops later after the elderly lady who was in the wheelchair had to wait again for another bus. 2 stops later. You could hear a pin drop, but the people are silent and as quiet and as contemplative that they were. I guess imagining, why wouldn't you get up? Young man. Nothing obviously wrong with him. Certainly not enough where he couldn't stand for 2 more stops. Come on now. And you have a woman have to go back out in the cold of January, snowing, because you decided that you weren't going to get up. Case after case. I know just this week, a group that I'm involved with, some of their members were going to United States Representative Dwight Evans' offices here in the city of Philadelphia on Ogon Street. And many of them had to turn around and go back home, or they could not get to their destination. And some of them were even the organizers of this rally, because there was no accessibility to the bus that they needed to be on, or that there was a significant delay in their bus coming to pick them up. I have experienced 3 or 4 buses passing me by, not even pausing enough to see if I needed them or not. I'm going out to the curb. It was one time I was in Center City, and there was a man standing next to me who was able-bodied, and he was waving them, letting them know that I was there, and I'm waving, letting them know that I'm there as well. 3 buses went on by me. I've had incidences like this happen over and over again, and I have many people that I know personally who have had the same experience, including my wife, when she has to travel either using her walker or she has to travel using a wheelchair. She too has to endure this insult. Good afternoon, Diane and Darlene. Good afternoon to my wife as well. I'm going to tell you the truth. Now, I'm going to read to you the policy of SEPTA concerning these priority seating. The priority seating is reserved for the elderly and disabled, according to Josh Gottlieb, who is SEPTA's Director of Administration and Finance, noting that the seating complies with Federal Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, regulations. There is a protocol in place for people who refuse to offer their seats to disabled riders, says Gottlieb. And he says it's a suggestion for passengers. He says it's a suggestion to passengers. We would like people to leave the seats open, but there's nothing we can do to make that happen. SEPTA discourages drivers from getting into verbal or even physical altercations with uncooperative passengers because another rider's disability may not be obvious. Gottlieb said drivers are expected to avoid at all costs any incident that could lead to anger and violence, and to take pains to not offend someone who may be unwilling or unable to comfortably move. All the operator can do is make a request, he said. We can ask, but we can't insist someone move. In many ways, the policy is a sign of the times on public transit, along with such aggravations as man-spreading and people who insist on taking up multiple seats on crowded buses and trains. Now, when I was looking at that, I looked at the policy. They said that they cannot request, nor can they demand, nor can they even suggest. It's only a suggestion. They can't demand that a person get up out of the seat and give it to someone who's either a senior citizen or someone who has a challenged ability. Good afternoon, Ingrid. Good afternoon, Joyce. And good afternoon, Arthur. Now, let me say this about that, about what we just heard already, about this policy. I looked, I ride the buses, but I went on Google and I wanted to see exactly how this sign, that in some cases are above the seats, some cases are on the seats themselves, exactly what this sign says. And I'm going to show it to you, exactly what the sign says. If I can show it to you, I'm going to read exactly what it says nevertheless. This is what the sign says. These are what's on the seats of the buses here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this is what it says. Priority seating for persons with disabilities and seniors. Yield these seats. Let me read it again. It says priority seating for persons with disabilities and seniors. Yield these seats. Good afternoon, Sister Beverly. Yield these seats, priority seats. That they said that they can only make a suggestion. The bus driver can only make a suggestion. They cannot demand or force the issue. But then you know me, anybody that knows me as a teacher, as a pastor, as a husband, as a friend, you know me, I want to look up words. I'm a word man. So I want to know what yield means. That's the pivotal word. Yield those seats. What does it mean to yield? So I found that there are two definitions legal definitions for the word yield. Hello, Brandon. I'm glad you came on. I want you to share it with some of the other guys from the Disability in Action and also ADACT as well. What we're talking about today, we're talking about SEPTA. Now, let me say it again because I want Brandon to see what we said. My friend Brandon, who also is one who is a wheelchair user and a great advocate for disability rights. On the buses, it says priority seating for persons with disabilities and seniors. Yield these seats. The policy of SEPTA has been that we cannot force the issue. We can only make a suggestion, a request. That's all we can do. But the bus itself, the seat itself says, yield these seats. Now, I want to know what yield means. What's the legal definition for yield? Brandon, I want you to listen. We may have to argue this point if we ever have the opportunity to stand, which we will, before the SEPTA board. What does the word yield mean? Well, there are two definitions. The first definition has something to do with finances. It's a financial definition. The second definition is germane to our discussion. In this context, yield means to abandon, acquiesce, allow, concede, give in, give up, make way, relinquish, and surrender. So when the bus company tells you to yield these seats, able-bodied folk, people that can stand for 2 more blocks before they have to exit the bus, the word yield in this context means you have to abandon, you have to concede, you have to give in, you have to make way for, you have to relinquish, and you have to surrender the seats. Using your own terminology. You're the ones who said yield these seats. Priority seating for people with disabilities. That's right, Brandon. That's what yield means. Give it up. Give in. Make way. Surrender. Relinquish. Concede. Get up. The implication here is clear. When a seat is to be yielded to a disabled person or a senior citizen, it is not meant to be a request or a suggestion. I'm just not asking you, would you mind moving like they always do? That's how they say it. Would you mind moving? Would you mind moving? That's not what yield means. Yield doesn't mean you're asking them. Yield does not mean that you're requesting from them. Yield does not mean you're suggesting to them. Yield means you're demanding from them. It's required of you with expectations of compliance. So this idea that bus drivers, a lot of times I'm going to tell you, and Brandon can attest to this and some others, they can attest to it as well. Sometimes the bus drivers want this to be the excuse not to let you on the bus because they don't want to be bothered. They don't want to strap you in. They don't want to get up many times. So the passengers, the able-bodied passengers that refuse to get up is their excuse not to press the issue. But the word yield means you're supposed to press the issue. You're supposed to demand. You're supposed to tell them to get up, give in, surrender those seats. That's what the word yield means. Now, except if you don't mean that, you should not put that on the seats. If that's not what you had in mind, you should find another word. For the word yield means you have to abandon it, you have to relinquish it, you have to get up, give in, give up, make way for, relinquish, surrender those seats to those whose names are on them. And the two groups are senior citizens and people with challenged abilities. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, whether you want to do it or not. What everyone that is on the bus needs to remember is that the disabled or elderly citizen rider is a passenger too. I hear a lot of times when I get on the bus, and I know Brandon can attest to this, he said they pass us every time, and that's true. But what they have to remember, the bus driver and the other passengers have to remember that we're passengers too. Brandon said it the other day. I was listening to one of his live feeds, and he was saying it very clearly. That we're passengers too. We pay too. You're supposed to serve us too. With the same right to travel and use the public transportation system as any other passenger. We are passengers too. So if you're all that conscientious and all that concerned about those passengers, remember we're passengers too. And the same concern and interest you have for them, you should also share with us. And so your interest should be that I would be comfortable in getting on the bus, that I'm able to get on the bus, that I'm strapped in safely onto the bus. I've been on buses where they didn't strap me at all, or they half strapped me, and I'm moving to and fro when they make their U-turns and their other kinds of turns that they make. Good afternoon, Apostle Simpson. Brandon says we fought for them, for them buses to have ramps and to be low to the floor, and they've complied with that. The company has complied with it, but they have not enforced the priority seating. They have not enforced the very word that they chose. And they chose the word yield. Yield those seats means surrender those seats. Relinquish those seats. Give up those seats. Abandon those seats. Concede those seats. That's what the word yield means. Now, I thought to myself, what can we do? What can be done by the company and by the drivers and the rest? What can really be done to enforce this rule? Well, first, you can give the driver the option of not moving his or her bus until the order is complied with. Remember, we talked about the first instance. Jessica Ruiz. When the brother-in-law talked to the passengers and got room for the girl that was in the wheelchair. When the brother-in-law strapped the young lady that was in the wheelchair onto the bus. The bus driver decided not to move the bus until a supervisor came on the scene. Well, why can't the bus drivers do the same thing here? If the passengers refuse to get up and yield their seat to a person who's a senior citizen or a person who has a challenged ability, then that bus driver should say to them, well, we're not going anywhere until a supervisor comes and straightens this whole thing out. So that's the first thing they could do. Just not move the buses. The same way she stopped moving the bus when she thought that the brother-in-law was interfering is the same way that they can not move the bus if the passenger that is in a wheelchair will not be allowed to get on. The second thing, CCT, which is the paratransit arm of SEPTA, which was really invented or at least established to help those who have physical, developmental, and mental disabilities. They need to suspend their conditional rider policy until the public transit system is more amenable and accepting of passengers with disabilities and senior citizens. Until the regular SEPTA buses, the public transit buses get their act together, CCT should suspend this conditional ridership policy. Meaning you got to be you have to be X amount of miles away, and you have to have no access to buses. Well, until those buses get themselves together, I think I should be able to call CCT and get myself a ride. So CCT should suspend their conditional rider policy until the public transit system of SEPTA complies with the rules and regulations of SEPTA. Another thing I think would be good is if, the third thing I would say would be good, that if we would have maybe a supervisor or an agent hired by SEPTA to monitor what goes on the buses on a regular basis. Hi, Maddox, how you doing? God bless you. We need to monitor SEPTA. So it'd be good if a supervisor or a hired agent would even, whether it be someone who actually is in a wheelchair or someone who gets in a wheelchair, just to see how for themselves, how the drivers and the passengers interact with people with physical, developmental, and mental challenges, in particular those in wheelchairs. The best way to do it is you get in a wheelchair yourself, try to get on a bus and see what happens with you. Try it about a few times, in particular those bus routes that have been problematic over the years, and those insensitive drivers who have had some sort of reprimand or some sort of complaint lodged against them. Get in a wheelchair or have someone in a wheelchair. There's two people right now, myself, and hire us, to represent you so that we can see for yourself. It would be good if they would have someone within the company, even if they would just get in a wheelchair and try to get on a bus. Particularly in those routes that are problematic routes and those drivers that have had complaints lodged against them. You get on the bus. You become a person with a disability, quote unquote, and see for yourself what kind of things we go through on a regular basis. Brandon said we should be able to do that. Officially represent the company and get on the bus. Why not hire us? Most of us, we always need a little couple dollars. We certainly don't get it from the government or anybody else. So we should be able to get on, and we already know how to work the wheelchair. Get up. In fact, sometimes they would not even be suspicious of us because they've seen us in the wheelchair before. But now we're representing the company. Get on the bus and see just how they interact with us. And then make that report. So then you can stand before the SEPTA board and say, this is the report. This is what actually is done. This is what actually is said. Passing us by on the street. Not even pausing. Sometimes speeding up. Always feigning that there's not enough room on the bus. Allowing people to sit there and not get up. When the seats themselves say you're supposed to yield your seat. And we already said what yield means. Abandon, relinquish, surrender, concede, give in, give up, make way for. That means you're supposed to get up. You're not supposed to sit there. You're not supposed to be allowed to sit there. It's not a request. It's a demand. It's not a suggestion. It's an order. You can sit there until someone who needs that spot, and then you're supposed to get up. And that's the way it is. We have to be more conscientious of one another. We're passengers too. For too long, we have been pushed to the background. We've been ignored. We've been marginalized. As if we're supposed to be in our house. Society has really gotten this thing, they've done it so long, they've excluded us so long, That they don't really know how to deal with us. They don't really they don't think we should be out in the public. We should not interfere with their regular routines of doing things. Why should they have to get up for you? You know, we have that nursing home mentality when I'm talking about society has a nursing home mentality, even if you're not in a nursing home. They got that institutionalized mentality, even if you're not in an institution. You're trying to mainstream people. You're trying to bring people out of these big buildings and these institutionalized places and integrate them within the mainstream of society. But the society itself still has an image of us being ostracized, being in there, being away from us, so that we don't have to look at you. We don't have to deal with you. Somehow or another, your condition threatens my I guess, self-esteem of myself. And I wonder whether, say for the grace of God, go I kind of mentality. Well, I'm sorry, folk. We're tired of living in the ivory tower. We're tired of being excluded. We're tired of being shut away and shut out of society. We're tired of it, and we're not going to take it anymore. And we're tired of people demanding from us what they think we should be. We're going to set our own course. We're going to demand our own rights. I envision people who have physical, developmental, and mental challenges. We will have our own transit system one day. Maybe not the only transit system, but we'll be comparable to whatever transit system's out there. So when we meet with people that are insensitive, people that are unsympathetic, people that don't have any empathy towards us or any understanding towards us and don't want to have any understanding towards us, we can call ourselves each other and get done what we have to have done. We're tired of society defining who we are. We can define our own who we are. We can direct our own destiny. And we can demand, we're 60 million strong. I saw a recent statistic that says 16% of African American males have a disability of one sort or another. 16%. There's 60 million people with physical, developmental, and mental challenges in this nation alone, and 1 billion around the world. We're tired of being that silent majority. Just taking it all on the chin. Passive, smiling, coping with, accepting whatever comes our way. You define what we call ourselves, who we are, what we're going to get, how much we're going to get, and when we're going to get it. We got to start defining our own selves. What do I want to be called? I chose not to be called disabled. I'll tell you the truth. I find the word somewhat, I take it back at the word at times. In fact, more than at times. I looked up the word. I looked up words. I'm a word man. I looked up the word disability from the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. This disability means one who is limited, disadvantaged, and disqualified from doing anything. Now, when you look at that as a definition, no wonder people, when they say you're disabled, no wonder when people say you have a disability, somewhere in the recesses of their mind, this definition shouts at them. You're limited, you're disqualified to do anything, and you're disadvantaged. Now, I know two of the people that are on this broadcast right at this moment. They're not limited to anything they want to do. Yes, they're in a wheelchair. Yes, they have a physical disability. Yes, they have challenges. That's what I like to call it, challenged abilities. Yes, they have that. But they're not limited in anything either one of them want to do. I see them all the time, and I know what they do. They go up and down the roads, to get in and out of Amtrak and on the buses and going to this meeting and that meeting. They raise family. They do things in the public sector. Advocates, voices of, they're in city hall meetings and state house meetings, and they're here and they're there and they're everywhere, making a difference in this world. They're not limited. They certainly aren't disqualified to do anything. They do a heck of a lot. So just the definition of the word, we as people with challenged abilities, we should look at that word, because it does not define who we are. I'm not limited. I'm not disadvantaged. And I'm not disqualified. Certainly not to do anything. I'm not limited, because anything I want to do, I adjust how I need to get it done, and I do it. The only thing that disadvantages me when I got to deal with the public. Society is my greatest disadvantage. Society is my greatest disability. Not my cerebral palsy. Not my fused hip. Not my asthma or my sleep apnea or my knee replacement. My greatest disadvantage, my greatest disability, is the attitudes and opinions of people in the world. Society as a whole. The way the government looks at me. The way the church looks at me. And I'd venture to say that's the way it is with every one of us. See, words mean a lot, because words instill in us what we think of ourselves and what others think of us. Hey, Stephen Johnson, one of my students when I taught history at Hope Church School, God bless you. Arthur's another one of my students at Church Hope School. He used to teach history in the history department there at the school. Yes, dear hearts. We need to take a stand, whether it be SEPTA, whether it be the state hall, dealing with the senators and the governor and the congresspersons, whether we're talking about the president of the United States or United States senators or United States representatives. We need to let our voices be heard as one voice. United, strong, bold. If we do those three things as it relates to SEPTA, you tell that bus driver, if SEPTA would tell their bus drivers, don't move until people comply with the order to give up those seats, till they yield, abandon, relinquish, concede, and surrender those seats. Don't you move until a supervisor comes and gets that thing straightened out. CCT, until SEPTA, the public transportation system, works itself out, you have to waive your conditional ridership policy and pick up folk that are physically, developmentally, and mentally challenged, until we can get it straight with the public transportation system of SEPTA. And we who are disabled need to work as agents for SEPTA and get on those buses, in particular those buses on routes that are problematic, and on buses where the drivers have had complaints lodged against them because of their discrimination against people with challenged abilities. We need to get on there and be the agents to show this company exactly how we're treated. It's not just people complaining about nothing, but it's things that we need to complain about. Cold in the wintertime, you got to wait for 3 buses. hot in the summertime, you got to wait for 4 buses until one acquiesces and through generosity stops and allows you to get on. No more. No more. No more sitting in the wings waiting for somebody to champion our cause. We need to get up, even if it's figuratively, and stand up, even if it's figuratively, and speak up and speak out and demand, not request, demand that we be treated as first-class citizens of this nation called the United States of America. That the same rights and privileges that are given to other members of this society are offered to us as well. And we who have the double whammy of being African American and disabled, and in my case, a senior citizen, I'm 65 years old, we need to champion those causes. Those who have physical, developmental, and mental disabilities, those who have mental and physical and developmental challenges. We need to champion for those who have severe conditions, terminal conditions, chronic conditions. No, they may not can get out of the bed. No, maybe they can't march. No, maybe they can't get out to a meeting. No, maybe they can't advocate and go to the state capitol and to the national capitol and to the city hall. Then maybe they can't do that. But we can and we must champion for all of us. For when one of us is denied equality, when one of us is denied justice, if one of us is denied the right to be who we are birthed to be as citizens of this nation, then all of us will eventually be impacted by it. And those persons who are not physically or developmentally or mentally challenged, those persons that are able-bodied, that can understand the struggle for freedom and justice, you need to jump on the bandwagon. We who have physical challenges, we have in developmental challenges and mental challenges, we have fought for everybody's right for justice and equality. And most times we don't have that same commitment from those other groups. And if there is a cooperative effort between the two groups, it's always something that's a part of their agenda too. You live long enough, you won't be able to see like you used to be able to see. Live long enough, you won't be able to hear the things you used to be able to hear. Live long enough, you won't be able to walk the way you used to walk. And remember the things you used to remember. Live long enough, and you'll be a part of the group that we call people with challenged abilities, people with disabilities, if you want to use that term. Live long enough, honey. Live long enough, folk, and you too will be challenged by something in life. And if it's not a physical or developmental or mental challenge, all of us are challenged by something. So every one of us should be able to relate to some challenge in life that you have to overcome, that you have to deal with, that you have to fight against. And when we can understand the struggle of the next guy, and he understands the struggle that we have, then together we'll be able to find the resolution to make this nation a nation where the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of justice, the pursuit of equality is for everyone, not just a few of someone's. Well, that's all we got to talk about today. Meet us again on Monday. We're going to continue our broadcast with Black history. The people with disabilities matter too. Oh, yeah. People with challenged abilities have left their mark on the American landscape. And many of them were African Americans. Harriet Tubman had epilepsy. Many think that she had narcolepsy. Epilepsy, both are brain damage caused by trauma to the brain in many instances. We have Stevie Wonder. We talked about him a few Mondays ago, who was born blind. We talked about Barbara Jordan, who had multiple sclerosis. We talked about Muhammad Ali, who had Parkinson's disease. This Monday we're going to talk about a couple others, Teddy Pendergrass and one other. We haven't decided which one we want to bring to you next Monday, but one of them will be talked about. We talked about Tony Braxton, who has lupus. Good afternoon, Tori. So join us Monday. We're here every Monday and every Friday at 3 p.m. And you can catch all of our broadcasts on my YouTube channel. Go to G. William Scott on the YouTube channel. Subscribe. You'll hear we have over 50 now. We have over 50 broadcasts dealing with the struggles, particularly of those who have challenged abilities and the struggles that each of us have as human beings. Until the next time, until Monday at 3 o'clock, we hope you have a blessed weekend. Enjoy your family, enjoy your friends here in the Northeast. It's been quite spring-like. Some places even been summer-like in other places in the country. So enjoy these next days, and the next time we meet will be Monday, Facebook Live, here at this time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, be blessed. Keep looking up. The best is yet to come.